Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get started, and we'll call this meeting to order. Welcome to Monday, November 7th, 2016's meeting. We'll start with a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Barnes.
Here.
Reed. Here. Brown.
Here.
Decker. Here. Kraus. Here. French.
Here.
And Mayor Domingo.
Here. Thank you. Mayor and council members' comments. Are there any comments from the council this evening? Lynn?
On November the 11th, which is Veterans Day, the Highland Park Transformation Committee is having a celebrity soup supper. And we would like to invite you all to come. It's going to be in the Albion Community Room at the Marshall Community Schools at 225 Watson Street. Starts at 5 and it's over at 8. We're going to have soup, salad, dessert, and a drink. For adults, it's $5, and for kids 12 and under, it's $3. And there'll be a few door prizes, and the proceeds are going to go to buy small items that will go in the senior section of Highland Park. We've got history field finished, we got children's section finished, we're working on the senior section now, and there's a few small things that we need to purchase so when spring comes, we're ready to put those out, and so we will be using this money to purchase those items with. Please come and support us and see who your celebrity soup server is. There's lots of different soups there, and so we'd like for you to join us. We are also going to be, within the next, I would say 3 to 4 weeks, working on the bathrooms there at the park out of a grant that Mr. Williams wrote to Enbridge. We're being able to do a bathroom for a handicap accessible bathroom and redo our old bathrooms that are there. So we ask you to come out and support us on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl?
I just wanted to remind people that although there is a leaf pickup and they will pick them up at the curb, that doesn't mean rake them in the street, because there's an awful lot of people that are raking their leaves in the street. Problem is that if it rains or something, they plug up all the sewers and we end up with flooded streets. So please keep them on your tree lawn. And anybody who's from Michigan knows what a tree lawn is. Thank you.
Yes, Maurice?
City of Albion has a comprehensive plan. I've been advocating Austin Avenue and the Malibu Iron site on Albion Street. I'm asking council to contact our city manager, Cheryl Mitchell, and give input on the development of those sites to be included in the comprehensive plan. I have talked prior concerning the target areas. I'm all in favor of those target areas. Austin Avenue currently is on that list. However, moving forward, I would hope that I could have your support for the citizens of Albion to develop some type of physical plant that could house 300 employees and also support a business district in the 600 block of Austin, which has been the norm in the past. However, I know we're in a new situation, but I'm truly hoping that we could develop that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
As I look across the council chambers, I see 3 candidates for mayor, and I see a current mayor who served our city ably for the last 8 or 10 years. I can't remember. Sorry, 8 years. And so I'm called to respond by saying congratulations to all the candidates for whatever elected office you are seeking. Thank you for your dedication and your willingness to step up. And I would encourage all citizens in Albion and everywhere to get out and vote tomorrow. At this point, candidate attitudes and opinions have been made known. Vote with your heart, vote with your mind, but get out and vote. elected. That is the most important thing that we need to do.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mayor Joe, for your willingness.
Any further? If not, we'll move on to presentations. We have a proclamation for the Centennial Albion and the Great Migration. Leslie, are you going to stand up and take it? Are you going to stand up with them? Sure. Okay. I see you got your leg all bound up there like... What'd you do to your leg? I gotta ask. Please, tell everyone what you've done to your leg,
Just
please.
wearing it till I wear it out.
What you have, a replacement? No? Hey, you got 15 minutes worth of fame. City of Albion Proclamation, the Centennial Albion and the Great Migration. Whereas the movement of 6 million African Americans from American South to the North from 1910 to 1970 is known as the Great Migration. And whereas the Albion Malleable Iron Company, in need of workers, went to Pensacola, Florida and recruited 64 black men who traveled by train to Albion, arriving just before Thanksgiving of 1916. And whereas the families of the 64 soon made the journey to Albion, and more waves of African Americans from Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, and all over the South migrated to Albion. In the Albion African Americans population of 30% today. And whereas the African Americans who were part of the Great Migration to Albion acted courageously with their declaration. Thank you. And he doesn't even have the paper in front of him. Of independence from Jim Crow, segregated South, and whereas the Great Migration participants looked to Albion for opportunities, they also challenged Northern segregation and discrimination. And whereas many of Albion's participants in the Great Migration worked difficult, dangerous, and dirty foundry jobs, their children achieved the American dream. And whereas in dedicating the African American Museum of History and Culture in the nation's capital in 2016, President Barack Obama declared that the museum reaffirms that all of us are American, that African American history is not somehow separate from our large American story. It is central to the American story. Now therefore be it resolved that Mayor Joe Domingo, together with the members of the Albion City Council, do hereby recognize the Albion story is American story, affirming Albion's pride in its diversity as a source of community strength, and in this 100th anniversary year of Albion and the Great Migration, honors those who made the Great Migration trip. Yes. Thank you all very much. Any words?
I'll a word here, thank you.
Okay. You can come around here and face them if you'd like, or whatever.
Sure. I'm Wesley Dick, in case someone might not know. On behalf of Robert Wall and Leslie and myself, thank you for the proclamation, Mayor. Leslie and I just returned from a trip to Washington, D.C. with our Sense of Place, Albion and the American Dream, a class about the story of Albion, its history, and its present day. It's a first-year seminar at Albion College. We and our students had the honor of visiting the Museum of African American History and Culture, mentioned in the proclamation. And prominent among the new museum's themes is the Great Migration. So there's a lot in the new museum about the Great Migration. And in a sense, Albion is there. It's in other parts as well. This is an epic story central to American history.
As the proclamation also notes, the Great Migration is central to Albion's story. When the Albion Malibu Iron Company went south to recruit 64 men, those first 64 men, their families followed. And nothing in Albion would ever be the same. Nothing in Albion would ever be the same after that. I was struck by an Albion Evening Recorder description of the Albion African American Emancipation Day Parade of August 1st, 1927, one that Frank Pastic has on display out in the lobby. Youth marching in the parade carried placards that described the motives of those who had come to Albion as part of the Great Migration. And one side read, "We came to Albion to find a home. We came to Albion to find a home." And so they did, and so they have, and our city is the richer for it. This year has been a significant year for affirming the value of history. In August, Albion dedicated the West Ward Elementary School History Exhibit at Holland Park. It has been rewarding to see the positive response to the Holland Park display. In September, President Obama dedicated the Museum of African American History and Culture in our nation's capital. The response to the new museum has been overwhelming. We believe, Bob, Leslie, myself, we believe history matters. And by issuing this proclamation, you not only honor those who made the Great Migration to Albion, you also affirm that their history matters. Thank you.
Introduction of Public Safety Officer Aaron Phipps.
Chief Scott Kipp, Albion Public Safety. I'd like to introduce to you our newest Albion Public Safety Officer, Aaron Phipps. Many of you may know Aaron. Aaron grew up here in Albion. He's a graduate of Albion High School and also Ferris State University. So he worked for the last, how many years you worked for Campus Safety? For 3 years at Albion College Campus Safety as Assistant Director. And then he's been with the Federal Center in Homeland Security. Yep, in Battle Creek. So we're happy to have him. He's been here for a couple weeks now, but his wife Billy is going to pin his badge on for him. So maybe. If she can get in there.
You got your vest on, don't you, sir?
You weren't lying.
If you go over, you might.
Will you say hi to your son?
I don't think.
Oh, you should bring him up.
Oh, God.
It's a trick.
There's a trick to it?
No.
Go to the trick.
Might go through that.
I tried that
There you
one
go.
already.
Yeah.
That's as good as
There you
you're
go.
getting.
Turn around for the camera, son. Turn around for the camera.
Shake his hand.
We like to try to have the officers do their oath of office when they get here, but he's already been out on the street working for a couple of weeks, so he had to take the oath a couple of weeks ago, but we're presenting with the plaque with the oath of office that he took 2 weeks ago.
Very good.
Yep.
Introduction of Jamie Curry. Jamie. Is it Duprise?
It's Dupree's.
Dupree.
And I
Amy
answered
Dupree's
everything.
is our new President CEO of the EDC, Economic Development Company.
So I've only been here 2 weeks, but I've had a busy 2 weeks. This starts 3. If any of you have any insight on what the strategic direction should be for the economic development, I welcome you coming into the office and talking to me. Council, that goes to you guys too, Mayor. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I'm looking forward to being a part of the community and helping move us forward. So any thoughts, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Citizens' comments. Persons addressing the city council shall limit their comments to agenda items only and to no more than 5 minutes. Proper decorum is required. Are there any comments on the agenda this evening from citizens? See none. Moving on. The consent calendar. I will do A, B, C, and D all together. We'll have a vote for it on all four. Approval of the study session minutes for October 17th. Approval for regular session minutes for October 17th. Approval for study session minutes October 20th. And approval for study session of minutes of October 24th, all of 2016.
So moved.
Moved and supported. Are there any questions, changes, or additions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same. All four items for individual discussion. Request approval of Resolution 2016-63, a resolution approving an amendment to the Albion District Library Agreement pursuant to the Public Act of 24 of 1989.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Questions? Yes, Garrett. Cindy, excuse me. Cindy, would you like to step forward, please? You can probably answer these questions better than I can.
Feel free.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to make a statement. Part of the amendment clarifies that the candidates would be appointed by Marshall Public Schools would have to live in the former Albion Public School District.
Yes.
So I think that's a positive, and I think after you answered a question earlier for me about potential, I guess, further partnerships in the future if we can work that out. I think that's a positive. So knowing that, I'm happy about that.
Yeah. And just for public note, this is clarifying that this is a follow-up of the conversation that was started in January when constituents started asking, you know, what would happen to Albion District Library with the annexation. And this is the amendment that merely states the phrasing is that to Marshall Public Schools as successor to the former Albion Public Schools. So this is merely an amendment of our existing agreement that basically inserts the phrase Marshall Public Schools as successor to before Albion Public Schools. And the only responsibility they have indeed is appointing one board member to the Albion District Library Board every 2 years. So, because they only have 2 positions, so it's a 4-year term. So every other year they essentially appoint someone to the board. But they do have to be resident of the borders that are identified in this document, yes. Any other questions?
That brings a question to me. Why is Sheridan Township not mentioned in this?
Because Sheridan Township as a municipality is not the participating entity. Marshall or Albion Public Schools were. So the Albion Public Schools district comprises approximately 93% of Sheridan Township. At the time, Sheridan Township was not the entity signing the district agreement. Albion Public Schools were. So that's why they're not mentioned in here.
So they're not represented at all?
They're not represented as a municipality. We have one member of our board who is actually a resident of Sheridan Township, the other one, but they represent the school district. We make every effort, especially under my administration, to make sure that the people that we are asking to represent the former Albion Public School District, now the Marshall Public School District, are residents of that 93% of Sheridan Township. Now that said, I'm sure that the board is familiar that sometimes it's difficult to get people to step up to represent their community. So we do make every effort to search out and to find someone willing to serve a 4-year term on the district library board, and that they are also a resident of Sheridan Township. But they themselves are not the participating entity.
But they pay into the library.
As a resident within the former Albion School District boundaries, yes.
Go ahead, Maurice.
I used to be a Albion District Board Library member trustee. Breaking it down, Sheridan was part of our school district, a portion of Sheridan, and the seats on the library are under the umbrella of Albion Public Schools. Now we're going to move it over to Marshall. Sheridan is in that situation. In that piece of pie, Sheridan and Albion Schools were offered a seat to the library, and it's under the umbrella of Albion Public Schools. Now it's just being transferred to the Marshall schools because these no longer exist.
I understand that, but Sharon's not even mentioned
No,
in the contract. I
they
don't-
never were. The only changes to this are changing, basically referencing that Marshall would act as successor. So there's no changes to the boundary. This is as it always was.
I guess it just doesn't seem right for Sharon, I guess. Yes, Garrett?
I think that, I don't know if I could be explicit about the question I ask. I mean, I know there's three municipalities. There's the city of Albion, there's Albion Township, and there's Sheridan Township, and then the library, or excuse me, the public schools. That was the way, I guess Sheridan was, at least a large, vast majority of Sheridan was looped into
Yes.
the library board.
Which my understanding, my math says it's approximately 93%. There is a small portion that are outside of the now Marshall Public Schools boundaries. And there is the possibility in the future of approaching those residents to contract for library service. Now, that has not been something that frankly we've seen a lot of interest of by those residents for.
Okay.
But the district agreement is as it always was in terms of participating entities.
So I guess to be explicit, I mean, there is always a possibility that we could go to Sheridan Township leadership and say, hey, would you consider putting that to a vote?
Yeah, and I'm at every Sheridan Township meeting and doing my best to make sure that they realize, they are a part of our library, and there's only very few residents that are actually not within our district.
Any further questions?
I need to make a statement just to be transparent. When I was a member of the library board, I reached out to Sheridan. I went out to their offices. The information that I received, when the original deal for the library in Sheridan came into effect, the powers to be were not happy with how some of the situation was unfolding. And we constantly invited them to come in and be part of it. Therefore, it was moved in that the Albion public school system would incorporate them so we can move forward and have a district library, period.
Thank you. Any further? Thank you, Cindy. If there is no further, did I get a motion?
Yes.
Roll call vote, please. Pardon?
It's a voice vote.
No, it's
No, it's a roll call.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Brown,
yes.
Decker,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
and Mayor Domingo.
Yes, thank you. Discussion/approval revised Albion Trust Agreement.
So moved.
Moved and supported. Questions? Yes.
As it is read, I was absent, I was out of town. I see that this proposal would maintain the 3 people who are already on there in incremental spots for the 1, 2, and 3 years. Am I correct? I disagree with it being all 3 of the same people because in that 1-year slot, I feel we need a new person to gain experience. I mean, we have a couple of the people on there right now that are gonna stay 2 years and 3 years, and I would think that a person who was looking to be involved, and who we decided was a qualified person with the experience, should be given the opportunity for the future, because if they're in there for 1 year, they would learn from the other 2 with the 2 and 3 years. I'm advocating that we have at least 1 new person in that 1-year spot. Thank you.
Yes, Garrett?
So I guess 2 things. Time crunch, I guess, is going to force us to have to make a decision here. But we've known about this, at least have discussed it among council at least for 2 years. So the fact that it kind of happened at the last moment, that's not a good thing. And so hopefully, going forward, we can make sure we don't have to wait to the last minute to really address some serious issues. Because I know at the last council meeting, what I was curious about is, again, what other municipalities do in this situation, because this is based on what the city attorney was saying, this is not, I guess, the standard way of dealing with these situations. In light of that, I think that what Councilman Barnes is saying does make sense, at least to have some level of change, considering that the people on the trust, the current trustees have been there for, what, 20 years? I think having,
Thereabouts.
you know, so I think that's a reasonable request. So in light, like I said, in light of the time crunch the council's in.
Okay. Yes.
Just so the council's aware, I mean, who you put in there is totally up to you, but in order to actually have a functioning trust, you need to have at least one trustee. So, I mean, whether it's one person or two people or whatever, as long as you have one, by the end of November, when our addendum expires,
Okay.
you're fine, and you can select if you want to use another one of the current ones, or if you want to appoint an entirely new person, but to keep the trust open and viable, you need to have at least one trustee in place before the end of the month.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. In looking at the way this has been carved up, it's been my experience, I recall from 5 or 6 years ago when Charles Robeson sat to my right, it was my understanding that Jan Lazar is the money person in that trustee. She's the one that has been able to steer this trust along its successful path and allowing for its growth. So I would opt that we flip. I mean, I guess I'm okay with having somebody step off immediately so we can have some new blood in there, but I would argue that person should probably not be Jan Lazar. Having her there, because she knows so much about how the money was managed and how the trust was put together, I see her and Charles Robeson as the ones with the most experience to help train whoever we would appoint. I guess my take on whether we do this now or in a year from now, bringing in new people, I would argue to allow it to be as written, just because the current trustees are going to have to meet and decide how best to create a training document, how to do the things that they need to do to transfer their authority to somebody new who will likely be coming in with very little experience. But that's not something I'm willing to die for. So, but I do think that Jan Lazar and Charles Robeson, Charles by benefit of being the only Albion resident, and Jan being the one with the experience in the money making, that they be retained on the board as long as possible.
Yes, Maurice.
My question is on the floor for council. Jan Lazar was maintaining this position from Florida. I believe she's back in the state now?
She lived 6 months in Lansing and 6 months in Florida.
Okay, so would logistics play a situation in this to get the job done? Because we got a person in March. I'm just asking, that's my question on the floor. How does council feel?
Well, to be very honest with you, I don't honestly think any of us really knew what they did. I really don't. I'm being serious. I don't know what investment. Did they actually make the investments? Or did they talk to the companies? Or did the money get invested in the investors, kept them abreast of where their money was?
Well, and Mr. Mayor, one of the changes that I did make is that it's no longer annual reporting, it's a quarterly reporting to council of what's going on. So hopefully, at least that will in part address that concern.
Well, even when they did it annually, they only told us how much money was there.
Right.
We really didn't know what the actual clutch of the matter, what they actually did. I mean, and I'm still not sure, other than they managed it. And so, I mean, it's kind of confusing. The money's sitting there. We know you only can use it for certain things. But I still think you have to have some type of financial background in investments and things like that in order to continue with that trust. And it can't be one of us, so it has to be somebody with that knowledge. And the only way we would know that, I would think, is to get one of them here to explain that, which I understood that's what we were trying to find out, what was going on with that. And I don't know if anybody ever made contact with a contact with Chuck or not, so.
We did.
He was out of town and will be for some time, I think, when he's returning.
Okay, so maybe Jan Lazar might be available or something like that. I mean, I know we have to have this solved with one person by the end of the month. Is that correct?
To have a functioning trust, you have to have at least.
Okay,
one
functioning trust is in,
trustee. You have to have at least one person selected. I mean, we can add the other two people. I mean, it's obviously preferable to have them all, but you can add the additional trustees.
functioning as in, if we have one person on that board, that means the money stays where it's at, it continues what it's doing, and it would be very advisable not to do anything with that money until you get this thing established. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Garrett, you had a question?
Yeah, I think the thing for me all along has been categorizing what we're doing. I mean, I know it's a trust, but in terms of the appointments we usually make are usually to like full-blown boards or commissions. And this is not necessarily that, so I'm just trying to make sure that, kind of what the mayor just said, you know, we can, for example, the charter allows the council to basically compel any city employee or board person to come before us and give a report. And we're putting that into the trust document, but I guess, is the trust going to operate under, I guess, the norms or conventions of a city board, or does everything that we want to do have to be in the document?
Everything that you would want to do would have to be in the document.
Okay.
Because it's not exactly like a board. It's somewhat different. Now, I have built into the trust, as I said, the quarterly, and when I say reporting, it's actually a quarterly accounting. And accounting, and I would defer to our finance director on this, should be, in my mind, the level of detail that the mayor was describing, not just what the number is, but, you know, more broken down to here's where it is, here's what it is. Additionally, and this was in the previous trust, though I don't know that we ever held the trustees to it, they're supposed to file a journal of basically minutes of their meetings every year. I don't know that we've ever received one of those, but those are things that they are supposed to be doing and that we can hold them to.
Are they, oh, sorry. Are they, would they be under, I guess, the FOIA convention laws, if a citizen wanted to have information?
It's a little, to a certain extent, because we're talking about public money, but at the same time, we're talking about trust. So my opinion would be that there would be a limited disclosure under FOIA.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess that just, don't want to beat a dead horse, but that's the concern that I guess I've always had since I've been on council, is the fact that if other municipalities are not really doing it this way, and we have a chance, it was a 20-year document, this is going to be how long?
12.
It's going to be a 12-year document, okay. That we really should have done the homework to see what other cities are doing. If this is not, it may not be illegal, but it might not be standard practice. Because of those kinds of things, because those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about, is if citizens want to know some information, if it's not, you know, fully accessible through FOIA, or depending on how we write it, you know, someone might say, okay, it doesn't cover this. Those are not issues that we have with, let's say, like a standard board.
Right.
So
We should have more knowledge of what's going on with that board. Yes, Becky?
As to what Councilman Barnes said, it's interesting to me, and I think he is correct, that Ms. Lazar and Mr. Robinson are not available in the foreseeable future. Having people on the board that are available seems like it might be a good idea and accessible. If we want to have people coming in and sharing information and keeping us informed, I think that Councilman Barnes is correct on that.
Right now, whose term is up on that board? They're all done when?
Well, the trust expired, so they lose their authority as trustees upon expiration.
Okay,
of the trust.
and it expired?
Well, we extended it.
yeah.
Okay.
So technically, they're good through the end of the month.
Okay.
Now, I mean, the original one expired the 16th, I think, the last one, the 18th.
Okay, of October.
Right, and so
Okay.
they're
And we
good
extended
through
it till the end of November?
Correct.
Okay, so we need to get somebody on that if no more than to be able to get the documents and everything else, because I don't know at this point where anything is.
Well, and, I mean, if information is a concern for the council, something that, I mean, we can just add a very simple line that says, they provide an accounting quarterly and shall provide any additional information and reports as requested by council, and then they're obligated to do it. I mean, it's a very simple change that we can build in if that's a concern that the council has.
Right.
Andy?
I would also add that all three of these are likely available, just not in person. We do live in a modern time. We could send an email to Jan Lazar asking for a full accounting. We could ask the same of Ann or Charles, and they would provide that for us. We wouldn't be able to bring them up here to a council meeting necessarily at our beck and call, but,
Sure.
but our plan includes that. So again, I think one of the reasons why we've got what we've got is that in the interest of getting the trust established, the new trust established, past sins have been committed. I get that. We want to know what that accounting was, but we're now creating a new trust document with new trustees. And so I think that whether we appoint a new person right away, we still need the accounting. And so I think we can do all of those things and still approve this with some minor tweaks that Councilman Barnes and Councilman Brown have suggested. I think that's fine.
Right.
But I think we need to move on this so that we don't lose the timetable.
Well, the timetable is at the end of the month. We have one more council meeting on the 21st. So can we make those changes to that document and see what we can find between now and the 21st?
Well, we need to, yeah, sorry.
I'm
Can
trying
we
to
recruit somebody? We got to recruit somebody.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And Mark was here to represent Chuck, and we never got back with him. So I don't know what he was going to say or present or anything else. So
He was just here to give us the numbers that he provided.
just the numbers, that's all he was going to
That's
do?
what he
Okay,
said.
and we have that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to find out where all the documentation is and all of that,
So other than the.
and select somebody to be on that board. Is that, one member somebody has to be in control of that as of the 30th of this month?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and then, aside from providing information to council at the request of council, what, was there any other change?
I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think what Councilman Barnes had suggested is that we, and I think I was advocating that we would have we would appoint somebody new so we're pushing the schedule up 1 year. Am I correct, Councilman Barnes?
That's what I would like.
So that Charles Robeson would be on it for 2 more years, that Jan Lazar would be on it for 1 more year, and we'd appoint somebody new that would be on it for 3 years, which is our term that we've set in our trust document for a length of term of service.
Well, as a council, you guys can fill in those blank spaces whenever. I mean, you guys put whoever you want in 1, 2, or 3 years. I mean, I'm just talking about in terms of substance of the document itself. I mean.
Right, that was the only.
Okay. Then, yeah, I can have this to you.
So we can have the document back here by the next council meeting and get that approved.
I mean, if you want to approve it with that change, you can do that tonight. And then you just.
I don't know, you're awful in a hurry. For an attorney to be in a hurry like that scares me.
Well, we have a council meeting on Thanksgiving week, so, he's probably thinking about turkey too.
Go ahead. Maurice had his hand.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I would advocate that incremental situation with the new person having the 3 years, and we make a decision tonight to move forward in a timeline to get this done, because we can always dot the i's and cross the t's later.
Okay. Garrett, you had a question?
What I was gonna, I guess, my scenario would be, we get the changes that we discussed in here so far tonight, at least have some kind of, I mean, if everyone's out of town, well, I guess this is a test of the whole thing. If everybody's out of town, then someone should still be able to call in and answer the questions that are being raised. So I think that would kind of prove that is a legitimate way of operating. So I think it'd be good if, let's say, the changes that we're talking about are added, they come back to us at the next meeting, and we can agree, let's say, compromise on Ms. Lazar, if she's the actual financial whiz on the trust, among the current trustees, and then maybe kind of consider how we're going to do with the other terms. I think it does make sense to keep someone on there because they'll have the institutional knowledge. But I do think there should be some new appointments made because again, the people who have been there for 20 years. So my recommendation is to have the changes. We'll keep with Jan, and let's do that at the next meeting.
And not vote on it tonight for the change?
At least, I think at least to have, because I think one thing that I know you've asked and I'm curious about is,
okay.
One of the questions that came up during this process was the question about the inclusion of the fire barn, and that's something I would like to know.
Inclusion of what?
The fire barn and the ambulance.
Yeah.
That if you read the contract.
Right, no, I understand.
It states that, the trust makes repairs to those, and I'm not quite sure that is what we want to do. If something goes wrong with one of those, the money comes out of the trust to repair it. That doesn't make sense to me.
That's exactly what we do with the bonds for the senior citizens housing.
Well, yeah, it's because they pay for it. It's their money paying for their housing. Why are we paying to keep that fire barn going when it's operated by police and fire and the ambulance crew? They ought to be paying something for that. Yes.
Thank you. So I guess what I'm hearing from Mayor Domingo and Councilman Brown is an accounting of what was done in the past and a reevaluation of decisions that were made with regard to what was in the trust. And I think, again, that's separate from what is at our task at hand now. So our task at hand now is to approve a new trust document without consideration necessarily of what happened 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago in the old trust document. So I think if we're going to have a conversation about whether or not we accept the fact that there are bonds in the Albion Trust for the firehouse, that's a much larger conversation that I think really puts us at risk of what we do with that firehouse. I think the reason likely that we put the firehouse in that trust is that there was money in the trust to buy those bonds. And that then protects our general fund from catastrophe. Think of it as an insurance policy that we own on the firehouse and any damage that would occur to the firehouse over the duration of the bond life. I'm quite sure that for minor repairs, those sorts of things would come not necessarily out of the trust, but would come out of the maintenance contracts that we have with all of our buildings. So I think that, in my opinion, I think we need to vote. I think we're in agreement with a minor adjustment which we're considering, I think, a friendly amendment, that we approve the trust as it states. There are blank spaces in Article 5 that describe who is going to be placed. I think we can place one of them. I think we've got agreement that Jan Lazar would be the one trustee. We also have agreement that we're going to appoint somebody new. And so given that we can appoint one, we can make this trust actually go. We can establish it. Then we can then collect information about past sins that might have been committed in the old trust, but moving forward in the new trust, we've made some corrections to those sins that we've committed, whether it be more regular reporting, a rotating membership on the board, which is, I think, what we all were interested in thinking about. And so I think that if we start opening up the trust and start making a conversation about whether we want the firehouse in the trust or not, I think does us a disservice. Thank you.
Yes, Maurice.
Right now, item B is telling me that we're looking to revise / make the new template for this trust agreement. With all respect, we got a motion on the floor, we got a second, and I'm asking for a call to question if I'm not being rude.
No, you're not. Gary, you had a question?
I get what you're saying, but I just think that, like I said, I think I've been on council for 6 years, and this was, when I first got on council, it troubled me. So I think that before we're not approving it for 20 years, but it is 12 years. And so I think it's important to make sure that we do our due diligence And so I think that's, you know, but again, if I recall, that was asked several meetings ago. So I don't think it's, but we can vote on it. I just want to make sure that, again, the council doesn't get in a habit of waiting to the very last minute to do things that we've known about for 2 years.
Yes, Sharon?
I just was wondering, is the trust audited every year?
The previous trust was required to provide an annual accounting. Whether or not that happened, I would defer to Tom. I honestly don't know, that's outside of my scope of knowledge, but obviously we have the numbers for it every year that we do the budget, because that comes across our desk. The way that the new trust reads is that they would provide a quarterly accounting, so it's more frequent.
Yes.
But it would not, but this was not a formal audit of this trust?
No, it comes in with our audit.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's done by Abraham.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Correct.
done by Abraham and Gaffney,
Correct.
wasn't it? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Done with ours.
So it isn't like it hasn't been looked at every year. It's just done once a year with our regular audit. Okay, that's what I needed to know.
My question would be is, I don't mind approving the change in the document, but I want to make sure you can reopen it, you know? So we're not, you know, so we don't lose the trust, is what I'm saying. But I don't want to make it sealed where you can't go back and do anything with the agreement.
Well, that's problematic because it's an irrevocable trust.
Okay, so that solved that problem.
With the trustees, you make the appointment for the trustees. So, I mean, like I said, you can appoint one and then add the additional trustees as you go, but the idea of it being an irrevocable trust is presumably because we're not supposed to be, given that we're not managing our own bonds.
Correct.
That's why it's irrevocable, and that once we set the terms, those are the terms, we're not involved.
Okay.
We don't have our fingers in the pie, so to speak.
Okay.
You know, we give them the ground rules and then they roll with it.
Right.
So what I would do is I would make the amendment to paragraph 10 that says the trustees shall file with grantor, which is the city, an accounting quarterly and provide any such other info as requested by the council.
Just one last question. I know after the last meeting, we were discussing how, I believe it was the police officers pension board? Okay. Those officers are appointed by council?
No.
They're not? Okay. Who are they appointed by? Do we?
The police.
Yeah, by the,
Okay.
the union.
Okay. So what I was going at with that was, which is kind of related to the earlier question I had at an earlier meeting, was, is the issue that we don't want to have to pay to have, I guess, a regular financial services firm to manage it? Is that the crux of the concern for doing the trust and not doing, because again, based on what you were saying at the last meeting, this is not a standard.
When I have not been able to locate another municipality that has done it this exact way. I put out a question to the Michigan Association of Municipal Attorneys. Nobody answered it. But I did speak with an individual that does investments with Meridian Township, and he said it's not unheard of to do a trust. Typically, he said that typically trusts are done if you know you're going to commingle bonds and for multiple purposes, and some are set to expire before others. He said that would be a conceivable reason why you would do the trust like this. And so I think maybe that was because the Maple Grove is obviously going to mature before the fire barn. He said, does everybody do it? Absolutely not. Does it happen? Yes. I mean, he couldn't provide me with any off the top of his head, but that was the only information I could find. Like I said, I checked with the other municipal attorneys and several other municipalities.
Yes, Maurice?
Well, these are questions that I feel we should be talking to the current trustees. Robinson was the city attorney at the time, and this all evolved while he was in the seat. And there were some questions that were answered that maybe this was the best way that they did business to get some of the things done for the barn and Maple Grove. However, I'm gonna be quiet. I think that these are questions that they need to answer when they come. And I'm gonna say it again. This is about putting the template together. You guys are, definitely going into elements, which we can address later, but we need this template in place before November 30th.
And you have to keep in mind, the way that the addendum is written, I mean, you have to, if you approve this tonight, you have to have one trustee selected tonight, because the addendum reads 30 days for the enactment of the new trust, whichever occurs first.
Well, the problem is putting somebody on there, none of them are here to say whether they would sign on it or not.
Right, you just have to send them the trustee document for them to sign the signature page.
Mayor, if I might, I did contact all three of them to find out if they were interested in being reappointed, or as well as the term of office they would be most interested in. So they all have confirmed their interest. And Councilmember Brown is correct that we have been talking about this for at least 2 years. And what we did try to do was incorporate the changes that council indicated they wanted. Most importantly, that they weren't being empowered to reappoint themselves as the trustees on this body. One of the issues, though, is that the city can't own its own bonds, so there has to be some entity in place in order to have oversight over the bonds until they're paid off. So this is the entity that is currently in place. If you don't want this entity, if you want to go with a more standard investment brokerage firm, there are fees associated with that, but that's always your option. And I would like to ask our attorney, if they should come to a decision at a future point in time that they want to dissolve the trust, is that an option?
Not the way that the trust is,
okay, so
is drafted right now.
Okay.
It would have to be, we would have to modify the language to allow for that.
Is there any reason why we can't bring this up during our budget sessions? We have 4 of those before the next council meeting.
I mean, you'd have to just put it on the agenda.
Okay. I don't know if that would, we could get any answers back from anybody prior to that. Andy?
Thank you. I think what we're struggling with is that really interesting place where the trust is in place so that we don't own the trust. But what I'm hearing is that we've got council members and folks thinking they actually do want control of the trust. And we can't have that. So I think, yeah, I mean, once again, we're at the last minute, and
right.
I think we just need to make a decision, and I think that we just need to make a decision and move.
That's fine, but like I said, I think what it is more like, it's a lack of understanding what the trust is really, really for. And I don't want to make that same mistake and have to wait another 2 years to correct it.
Well, I mean, I can add additional language into Article 2 under where we discuss termination, that it'll either, there's several scenarios in which it will terminate. I mean, I can add in language where it could terminate should the grantor, the council, elect to.
Doesn't that give council control of it?
No, I'm saying replace it with a different third party.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Investment.
But doesn't the city have bonds now that we control?
No.
Through Tom and them?
No.
You can't do that.
Oh, that's outstanding bonds.
Sure we do.
General obligation bonds.
Sure we do.
What?
What are they from?
The general obligation bonds.
Oh, general obligation
Right.
bonds, that's different.
Right, but I just don't want people to get them confused that, we do that, but because of the trust the way it is, we don't want that. But I just, like I said, I don't want to get stuck into something that we can't correct, in the process.
That's slightly different because we don't own the bonds. The issue.
Correct. But like I said, I mean, if there's going to be some changes, and if you seal this, then you're done. You can't make any changes to it, and it stays as is.
Right, but I don't see them.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think ultimately, if we, what I understand the attorney to be saying is that ultimately we can't own the bonds. So
correct.
The trust is, I guess, administering that, or another financial firm, I guess, will never be able to do that. So I wouldn't. I think that's a good idea. I mean, you could always put a thing where a supermajority to do it, because that'll keep it from you know, from just like a whim, but I think that's a, I think it's a fair idea. Because what you're saying is it's feasible to do, there's no hurdle to.
Well, we'd have to build in language. I can build in language that says that the trust will terminate if, say, for example, by a supermajority of the council, you elect to utilize an alternate third party as trustee.
Yeah.
I mean, something along those lines. I mean, as long as it stays out of the city's hands.
Yeah. Because that's the real issue.
Okay. Are we asking for this document to come back?
If we could, I would make a motion to add that. I mean, if that could be added, I'd be in favor of voting to that.
That's a friendly amendment to you.
So what we have on the floor is you. Okay. Yes, Cheryl, I'm sorry.
If I'm not mistaken, we have Maurice's on the floor. But my concern here is that we're looking, something that has been working. I understand that we're looking to change it, and I understand why. But we've also been getting really good return on these bonds and on this particular trust. And my thought is, why would we want to go with an outside firm where we have to pay them to manage it when right now we're getting it for free? That doesn't make sense to me, because we are getting a really good return on this trust. So it makes no sense to me when we don't have, these are people that are not, well, they're related to the city and that they know the city, but they're not agents of the city, as far as they are not elected officials, they are not people that have been elected officials in the last couple years. The same kind of language that we're putting in now. I don't think we should be spending money to manage something that's working.
Yes, Becky.
I don't think that Garrett's saying we need to do that now. I think he's saying he wants the option at any point if the council agrees to.
For future councils, yeah.
So he's not saying let's just switch now. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is, and I think Dr. Mitchell got it right. I think the original concern was the fact that you had basically 3 people who could reappoint themselves for 20 years. And so I think that's addressed by what the attorney has drafted. But I do know that all of us will not, you know, we're probably all not going to be on the council years and years and years and years from now. So if a future council does decide, hey, we want to have, the city is in a much more prosperous position and they want to have someone else do it, that they have a mechanism for doing that. And I think, as with, even with calling the question, there are ways to shield that from a kind of a political thing by instituting a supermajority. So if 5 council members 10 years from now say, hey, we want to go something different, I think that's worth doing, at least to get, because what I'm saying is, I'm trying to give the future leadership of Albion a privilege that we weren't given, basically. And it's about accountability, so.
Okay. So the changes that you have?
Yeah, paragraph 10, and I'll build in a paragraph between what's presently 5 and 6. I'm sorry, it'll be Article 2 between 5 and 6, and then Article 3. I'm sorry, Article 4, paragraph 10. So I'll make the change to that. Filing the accounting quarterly and providing any other such info requested by the grantor. And that way you could bring the trustees in and ask them whatever you need to ask them. And then as it relates to termination, upon a supermajority vote of the grantor, it may terminate, or the grantor may elect to terminate the trust to have an alternate third party administer the remaining trust assets, principal, and interest.
Okay.
Something along those lines, so that you have the option to do that if you so elect.
Okay. So what we're voting on is the trust agreement with those changes.
Yes.
when you're done with those changes, would you get those out to the council so they can read those? And then the next meeting is when we select somebody, at least one person, to be on that trust. Am I correct?
So,
Unless we could agree now to put Jan Lazar on. We just need one.
I know, I'd rather wait, but just me. Yes, Maurice, you had a question?
we'd have to either move forward on my motion or we'd have to take it off the table.
Well, I guess the question, I'm sorry.
I could amend it, my motion. And to include that, but we have to take my motion off the table some kind of way.
Point of order.
Yes.
I think if you accept the changes that we've made as friendly amendments, we can move forward with your motion.
That's my point.
So you, the change.
So do you
Yeah,
consider those changes as friendly amendments?
That's cool. I like to amend my motion, please, Mayor.
Draw it.
I'd like to continue my motion to accept this template and a friendly amendment to the statements that were given to the attorney to add Jan Lazar so we can move forward.
Do we have, oh, sorry. Mr. Mayor, do we have to select one of the terms? I should say I'm in agreement with that, with the amendments, and then with Councilmember Barnes' suggestion is with at least keeping Ms. Lazar, but do we have to pick a particular?
I would pick where you're gonna put her tonight. I mean, and if I can offer a suggestion, why don't you put her right in the middle of the 2-year spot?
That's fine.
That's what we got it on paper on mine.
No, she's a one.
No, in the amendment that I made, we had Jan going to 2, Robinson going to the, no, I'm sorry.
I mean, and
Robinson going to the 2. Oh my God.
what you can do, I mean, if her term expires in 2 years and you like what she's doing, just reappoint her for a continued term. I mean, it's
Right.
that simple.
Man, there's no problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay, Cheryl?
I just have a question. The city manager spoke with Ms. Lazar, and she said she opted for the 1-year term.
Well, then put her on for 1 year.
Sure, that's even better.
So I mean, to amend it so that.
She's the only one we have to worry about right now anyway.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Yeah.
we can fill the other terms whenever,
Okay.
okay? Because everybody's done,
Right.
so
Right.
you can put her into the 1, 2, or 3. So
Right.
she selects the one, put her there,
Right.
okay?
Good with that, Colin?
Any further? If not, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Decker,
Yes.
Kraus,
No.
French,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
and Mayor Domingo.
Yes, thank you. C, discussion and consideration of the single hauler proposal.
Councilman Brown, you're up.
Well, Mayor and Council, as you are aware, we did receive the RFPs from the 3 firms of Ranger, Republic, and Waste Management in regards to the single hauler proposal. You had a special meeting on October 20th to go over those responses. And so now it's before you to give us some direction on how you would like to proceed.
Go ahead.
I guess I'll start off. It seems to me, I guess when I requested council to kind of begin the process of looking at this, and then the city manager was very helpful in scheduling, I guess, the initial meetings with the haulers, because the idea was that the city has a solid waste fund that was being depleted, and that's what we use to actually do leaf pickup. And so if that trend continued, that would be a city service that would not be available. So the idea was to see what creative options we had to solve that problem, but then maybe kill multiple birds with one stone. So in the best possible world, the idea was if we could get, let's say, for example, a model that the city of Battle Creek uses where there's weekly garbage pickup. There's also weekly curbside recycling and weekly yard waste pickup. And because, you know, we're not as large of a city as Battle Creek, you know, some of that would have to be scaled back. But the idea I think the council looked at was, you know, what particular scenarios were possible. And it seems to me that the garbage pickup and the yard waste pickup are feasible. It's the recycling part that would be over the top. But that was just my initial review, but I mean, other discussion.
No further questions on the hauler? Yes, Andy.
So, Councilman, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. You said that the garbage and the, everything but recyclables is feasible? Is that what you were saying?
Well, I was saying, I guess that's, when I did the calc, I mean, when I looked at did the numbers, because one of the other things we run into is that not everyone in the state is paying the same rate, even with the same,
yes,
the same, I guess, hauler. Yeah. So, you know, that might be an issue, but I think we have to get a baseline of where it's like a median.
Right. So, okay. Thank you.
Reese?
I'm sure everyone has had a chance to look at this for the consideration. I'm looking at, I don't know if I can say the name of the hauler.
Sure you can.
Public information.
Public information.
Ranger in the first year, and if we look at the service in boxes 1, 2, and 3, and the cost to the citizens, from what I'm looking at, it covers every aspect that we need. Just looking at it from this on paper, is there anything different than it would be with this?
The, excuse me, recycling was gonna be a separate charge, am I correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, and the way I figured our bill, if we added recycling, that's gonna be an extra $100 a year over the top of my bill. I don't think most residents are gonna go for that. We did mention that if the city paid the $7,000 from the county, that would lighten that load up a little bit. I don't know how much. That would do away with our county recycling center here in town, which if we're having recycling at the curb, why would we have to have it here too, I guess? So we could lighten the load up there a little bit, but I'm not sure what that would equal out to. Yes?
So I was thinking that looking at this from box to box, that the citizens would have a choice if they wanted to recycle from that company.
And that's what we have to determine.
They all have to do the same thing.
See? Yes, Andy?
Thank you. A simple calculation of what Councilman Brown is proposing is, given what we've seen, there's an every other week pickup of yard waste, 6-bag limit, and $26.55 for garbage, residential refuse, and that brings the total to $40.50. Current, a quarter. What I currently pay has varied based on how aggressive I want to be on the phone with other carriers. So, you know, I'm paying $90 now. 2 years ago, I argued and got it brought down to less than $40.50, but it has crept up quarter by quarter. And so one of the things that I like about Granger's proposal is that, and this idea of having a single hauler, is that price is locked. It doesn't
Correct.
change. There's nothing else added, and so I can budget month to month, quarter to quarter for my refuse pickup. And so that's why I like it, and it's a whole lot less than the others are proposing. So, you know, I think from our citizens' point of view, some people might be paying less, but that's because they've been calling people and, you know, and calling and complaining about their rate, or find out their neighbor across the street's paying less, and so that seems a little, you know.
I think it's a similar thing that Councilmember Reed brought up, that you did that too. I think it was around with the kind of fee, additional fee that was tacked on.
So anything over and above garbage pickup in our solid waste, our leaf pickup or our
Right, we have.
yard pickup
Yeah, sorry.
would be optional, am I correct? Is that what we're saying?
I think what we accept or choose to accept is sort of the contract that gets written in stone. I think because we already have a local recycling center that's got 3 days of use, we heard at the meeting you did not attend, Councilman Brown, because you were in class, I think, that some folks who weighed in that meeting were like, why would I want to pay for something that I can get for free by just driving down? I understand the convenience factor is huge for many people, so I'm not married to that idea, but I'm just saying that if it's an additional $27.45, we're now paying $75 a quarter, and so I'm just saying that's.
I think, you know, we do have to be, you know, if we do approve something like this, we have to be cognizant of not making it, you know, astronomical. But I think we do still have to figure out a way to make sure that the recycling center is open. Because I think that's something when, you know, especially the last couple of months when I've been out talking to people, that's been a concern, is that the hours are not regular. And so I think that's something that, you know, we're gonna have to look at eventually. I think, originally, like I said, the impetus was to deal with the leaf pickup issue. Okay, so at least if we have garbage pickup and yard waste pickup, that's a starting point. But I think we do need to look at options for recycling, because from what I'm hearing from people, that's not a reliable site for that.
Yes, Becky.
Thank you. One of the things that came up at the meeting you weren't able to attend was the possibility of closing the recycling center, because that would save the city money, and then everyone would have recycling at their home. So that was something we did discuss.
Right, that was what we were gonna do with that. Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the comments about the reliability or the regular hours at the recycling center, I think, are maybe overstated a little bit. I think that what's difficult is that they're open at different times depending on the day. Right, so today I was planning on taking my kids to the center, and I couldn't remember if they were open from 10 until 2 or 2 until 6. I thought it was 2 until 6, and no, it was 10 until 2. So I understand that. But the staff that they have now, over the last couple of months, I think has been very consistent. But it's not convenient, and I think that's the thing that we struggle with, because if you work from 9 until 5, there's really only one day during the week when you can take recycling, and that's Wednesday, I believe, which is 2 to 6. And you can go on Saturdays from 10 until 2. So I understand that. I just think that, you know, an extra $27.45, I don't recycle that much stuff. And if you're a house of 2, the amount of stuff that you might recycle is very small, and so you're paying, you know, $27.45 for recycling that isn't necessarily worth that.
So,
yes.
So something that Councilmember Decker just raised, the discussion about, was the discussion about, let's say we diverted the money that we use for the recycle center to help subsidize that. I mean, what was the discussion about that?
How much do we?
The $7,000 that we pay the county, we would put towards that recycling of picking up at the residence.
Okay.
But we're not sure
if that'd be enough.
If that's going to be enough.
Nowhere near. No.
So. Okay.
Mayor and Council, I guess the direction I would need would be the primary question. One, are you willing to go with a single hauler? And then what are the services you would want that single hauler to provide? Because if there's not a consensus to go with a single hauler, then we don't have to spend a lot of time going over the details.
So, one question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
One question I guess I would have is the state of the solid waste fund. I know we were able to collect more mills, but is that still the trend?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, I mean, just based on that, to answer the question about services, I think the minimum would have to be garbage and yard waste pickup.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the minimum for that.
Well, that's what this says.
Yeah.
Discussion or consideration of a single hauler proposal, okay? Are we still looking for a single hauler? I think that's the important part. I think, is that what you were asking, Cheryl?
Yeah.
Is that still gonna be on the board? I mean, okay, so we are doing that. Now we have to put together what we're gonna offer in that single hauler, okay? Andy?
Thank you, Mayor. I think whether we decide to do a single hauler or not is again a separate issue over what we choose. I think that unless there are other modes for handling leaf pickup, I don't know about you, but today was a perfect example of why we want leaf pickup. Yeah. Because we've had some people who have some burning permits who live on the south side of town, southeast side of town, and they were burning and the smoke was all over the city. And I have a smoke allergy, so I was feeling it. So I think that we don't really have a choice. We need to have leaf pickup. We have lots of folks who suffer from lung ailments and issues, and having smoke in the town from burning leaves in the fall is probably not a good idea. So I think the other question we have to ask is there room in any budget where we could find the $32,000 or whatever it costs to do leaf pickup within our budget to continue doing what we do? What I hear people saying is that the answer to that question is no, that our budget is razor thin. Only because of some shortfalls in public safety this year were we able to find enough money to pay for leaf pickup this year, because I think we all remember last year we were told no leaf pickup, and then all of a sudden we were able to find some savings and do that. I like the idea of having a consistent idea that every year we're gonna have leaf pickup. So I think that because we have a 3-year contract, I think I'm okay with the idea that, we're gonna look at this every 3rd year to make sure we get the best rate. So, yeah, I think I'm in favor of it.
So.
Okay, I'm confused.
No, I guess so I sense that there would be a consensus to consider it, to have that vote, and that the minimum would be for garbage pickup and yard waste pickup, with the added benefit that it's every other week, so it's not just like a seasonal. You don't have to wait until everything has just basically been, this huge mass of leaves. You can kind of take, segments of your yard and do that, and do it all throughout the year. So whether that's like, grass clippings or those kinds of things too.
So can we bag up our snow and put that out there?
That's next.
Yes, Maurice.
In that proposal, right now, it tells you a limit on how much you can rake up. So would you be able to get your leaves out through that seasonal period?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you said 6 bags per week or per 2 weeks?
Well, yeah,
Remember one thing about bags.
Yeah.
Whether it snows or not, you can still pick them up.
Right.
Okay, that's one advantage. When they're in the street, it makes it more and more tougher, and that's when you get them back into your yard and everything else. So, yes, Cheryl.
I have a question about the bag thing. Is somebody providing the bags? Are the citizens providing their own bags? And are there specific bags that they can use? Because in some communities, you can only use clear bags.
That would be my recommendation.
And the other thing is, we're talking about 6-bag limit, are we talking about size? Because I agree with Councilmember Barnes, there are times 6 bags when you really have a lot of leaves is really a small amount. So my question there is, what are we talking about when we talk about a 6-bag limit?
Okay. So, yes, Andy?
I would ask that we adjust our conversation ever so slightly, and let's decide, I think we're in agreement that we're looking at a single hauler. I think we can decide, we need to vote on that, that we will take a single hauler, and then we need to decide on which of our 3 bids we're going to accept. And then once we've decided on that, we can then talk about details.
Would you be comfortable just tonight having the vote?
On tonight's decision would be, we want a single hauler or we don't.
Okay.
That's it. We're not making any contracts or anything else. That's only on the single hauler, per, you know, if we're gonna go with that.
Okay.
I have one more comment.
Yep.
I've been contacted by a lot of citizens who don't want us to pick their hauler.
Okay.
And I just think I need to lay that out on the table. I understand about the difference in prices, I understand about all of that, but I think that we have to, that I would be remiss if I did not say that there are a lot of people out there that don't want us to pick their hauler. They want to pick their own hauler for whatever reason. So I just want to lay that out there because my concern is that one of the things that we talked about originally was with a single hauler that we would have, everyone in the city would have to have pickup. Well, we have an ordinance that says everybody has to have garbage pickup right now. And we know that everybody in the city does not have garbage pickup. And my concern is even with a single hauler, if I were the hauler and you hadn't paid me for 6 months, I'm not gonna pick up your garbage. So consequently, I'm not sure that if that was one of our goals was to get pickup all over the city and everybody have to have it. We already have an ordinance in place for that, and this is not going to do that. If it's because we want to have leaf pickup, okay, I understand that more. But I do want to say there are people out there that are not in favor of this, and I've talked to a lot of them, so.
If there is no further questions, we will be voting on whether we continue discussion and things with a single hauler. Roll call vote, please. Oh, we didn't have a motion or anything? Oh, well, excuse me. Before we do all that, does anybody want a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. No more questions. Now we can have our roll call vote.
Councilmember Decker?
Yes.
Kraus?
No.
French?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
And Mayor Domingo?
Yes, thank you. D, requested approval for 2017 council dates.
Mayor and council, you have before you proposed dates for 2017 for the regular council meetings, those being on the first and third Monday of the month, with the exception of those dates that fall on or near a holiday. Those are identified on those adjacent Tuesdays.
Yes.
So moved.
Support.
Yes.
Thank you. I think I asked this question a couple of years ago, but remind me, does it have to be on Mondays?
Yes.
Charter.
That's what I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember. I think,
Yep.
okay. I'm just thinking with Blues at the Bohm happening on the first Monday of months and we stuff going on.
We could always, like, does the meeting have to be here too?
Hey, let's have a council meeting at the Bohm. I love it. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, the same. Passes. Thank you. Request the approval of Resolution 2016-64, resolution in support of SB 1127, universal tax withholding.
So moved.
Moved and supported. Who wants to tackle that, what it means?
Mayor and council, if you recall, I think it was about a year and a half ago, there was similar legislation, and basically it would require those companies that have employees that reside in the community, such as Albion, that has a local income tax, that they are required to do the withholding of those income taxes. So this is the latest legislation that was most recently introduced. It's supported by the Michigan Department of Treasury as well as Michigan Municipal League.
This is what's going on with Detroit right now.
Yeah, they're the,
It was passed for at one point. All right.
yeah, they get everything.
Yeah.
Any further questions? If not, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember French,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Decker,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
and Mayor Domingo.
Yes, thank you. F, request approval of resolution 2016-65. A resolution to approve Albion Department of Public Safety's lease of a vehicle with Ford credit.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Questions?
Yes. We already approved the $25,000 grant. I have some questions on the financial aspect of it. Total cost of the vehicle is $47,623, and I see that down at the bottom, 623 isn't counted for. It's not a lot of money, but
Those just rounded.
okay, rounded. I'm concerned that we're buying a lot of police vehicles. I've supported all of those purchases. I need to know how many vehicles are in our fleet, how many are in service, how many are out of service, why are they out of service, how long have they been. I think about 2 years ago, we looked at the maintenance plan for the police department vehicles, and we would be getting some type of information on how they'll be coming in and out of service. Now, I'm not gonna Monday morning quarterback our chief or his officers. I'm seeing us put a lot of money into vehicles. I'm seeing 2 different scenes of accidents that I have some concern, being a former police officer for 14 years. I know at the Michigan State Police, they give us police pursuit driving, et cetera, et cetera. And some of the elements of that were, you identify the subject and you have some discretion in pursuing that subject. You look at the risk to life to the officer, the subject, and the public. And in the last few situations we've had, I'm thinking discretion is the better part of, I'm gonna use the word valor. Recently we had a 125-mile-an-hour police chase. I did talk with the chief. I'm not, presenting anything that I haven't touched base with him, and he told me he would be ready tonight to answer any of these questions. We had 2 APS vehicles which initiated the physical damage to stop the vehicle. It was based on a Calhoun County stop, based on the smell of some marijuana. And in reviewing the Michigan Municipal Review, we as a council will be having the authority to make an ordinance for the dispensaries to be in town. It's going to be totally up to the council. I'll refer to the lawyer if necessary. Long story short, I'm thinking at that time of night, the other agency smelled marijuana, and you get into that type of speed. I'm concerned of the discretion. I'm not Monday morning quarterbacking, but marijuana is legal in many states. Our state itself voted to legalize it. It is violation federal. But to put your life and others' life at risk, I'm having a little problem with that. And we seem to constantly be replacing vehicles, not due to the attrition of the maintenance program, it's because of discretion of the driver. So, with all that being said, we did approve this $25,000 grant, and we have to come up with the match. And so now my question is, the match comes out of the general fund, or?
Correct.
So I have streets over on First, Second, and Third that haven't been done since the inception of the city of Albion. I need money for those streets also. So that's why these questions I have: what is our fleet total? Are they in service now? Can we get by without continually buying new vehicles based on officers' discretion in making pursuits that was a little bit of discretion where you got the license number of the person. Even now, they contact that person later after they shut it down. They go to the home and say, who's the owner of this vehicle? Where was your vehicle tonight? Who's driving it? Based on a suspicion. And everybody knows I support our APD all the time, 100%. But I want a little more discretion in some of these pursuits. And yes, over near the college, there was a shooting. So I can understand that pursuit. But still, with two police officers crashing into each other, I'm thinking they should have saw each other. And I'm not being critical, I'm just looking through the mirror saying, hey, let's take a look at some of the decisions we make before we, put these lives at risk. The officers, the public, and the subject. Thank you.
Garrett?
I just have a much shorter question. Considering the budget's coming up, can that be part of that conversation? Because if we pay for it, would it be coming out of this year's budget or next year's budget?
Both. The grant will be going towards the first year's payment.
Okay.
Then the subsequent payments will be the Ford credit lease/purchase agreement.
So we would get the grant this year?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
I guess my question would be, we got $15,000 to outfit it. Not quite sure what you mean by outfit it other than lights. And then you got $4,200 just for a computer. I mean, just to outfit it, we're talking just $19,000.
I've asked Chief Kip to be here to respond specifically to some of the questions, but I do want to remind the mayor and council that about a year and a half ago, we did present to you the summary of the status of all of the vehicles we have in public safety. And because of the standards in regards to the amount of miles that should be on the vehicle's engines in particular, they do need to be rotated out essentially about 1 to 2 every year, just based on the mileage that we're putting on the vehicles. So you had already approved the grant match for this particular vehicle that's in question. And Chief Kip, if you could respond to some of the specific questions.
Sure. As far as the cost of the vehicle, normally we wouldn't have put this much money into the vehicle, but the grant was for $25,000. We had a required match of $22,000, which allows us to replace some equipment that hasn't been replaced in years. Part of that is $45,000 for a new in-car video system, $4,500 for a new in-car video system, which we're replacing ones that we bought back in 2003. The computer is replacing a computer that was bought in 2005. It's a Windows XP computer. Windows XP is no longer serviced. I can't upgrade the computer. It doesn't have the ability to work with the programs that we have. The reason that computer has been in service for 11 years is because it's a Panasonic Toughbook, and we paid $45,000 for it back when we bought it. Other departments, $4,500, apologize. Other departments have had tried to do this with cheap computers, buying $500 computers, and they replace them every 1 or 2 years. If you do the cost on $500 for 10 years, it's more than what this computer costs. So it's what's required to do the job, and because we got the grant, we were able to afford the new equipment for the vehicle.
Well, you wouldn't be able to afford it if you weren't doing it over 2 years. And then on top of that, how much damage did we do to the 2 vehicles?
I don't have a cost on that yet, but I believe those are fully covered by insurance.
So that's going to cost us a deductible?
That's fully covered by insurance because it's not our fault. It's a responsibility of the vehicle that we hit.
And if they don't have any insurance?
They do. It's Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
I got to see that. I don't believe that whatsoever. I'm sorry.
Well, the last time we were involved in a chase,
125 miles an hour. We were chasing. an individual that was already being chased by the county. We jumped in front of the county and took over the pursuit at 100, and I'd like to know how that happened. But
county-
then
can I-
again,
can I explain
you know,
before you go
then
further?
They ran over the spike strips. They got down to 60 miles an hour. You hit him with a pit move, and the other cop busted him in the nose to make sure he didn't go anyplace. Okay. We didn't put anybody at jeopardy, other than 2 cars. Now we're asking for a $50,000 car again, that we just did here a year and a half ago because of negligence. 2 of them run into each other. Now you want more vehicles. We don't even know what the budget is. We don't know where we're at budget-wise. And we won't know that until we start doing the budget next Monday. So my recommendation would be no, even if we approved $25,000 grant, that, you know, we don't have the money to go with this. It just doesn't make sense, not knowing where our money's at. And once again, we're in the 11th hour because you gotta have the grant in by a certain time. So my recommendation would be no. Maurice?
I need to follow up. I met with the city manager, and when we went over it, you know, I stated the rate of the fiscal budget for the police department, and she did let me know we do have the money to pay for it. And so I have to be fair. We approved the grant knowing we were going to have a match. I specifically asked, was there a match? And I was told there a match. Even though I have my own situation with this, I just believe we have to approve it because we're the one that told him that he could have the grant.
Well, and at the time, we explained the leasing option and how we were gonna pay for it over the 2 years with the lease. This is a matter of approving, signing the contract for the lease.
I understand totally. I just wanted, you know, to share with you publicly how I felt about the chase, and I hope to let the people know I did come to you and talk to you prior to this. I don't want it to look like that I was, you know, superseding his authority or Monday morning quarterback. We have to have cars. I just want to see them transition out through the maintenance program, and we have some discretion. I just had to put that on the record.
Are there any more questions? If not, go ahead.
So I guess the 2 vehicles that were involved, what were the age of those 2 vehicles?
The one was a 2013, the other one was a 2015. The 2015 had minor damage to the front push bumper.
In the next budget, is there going to be any, is there going to be another ask for another vehicle in the budget we're about to go through?
Well, as a city, not in this budget, no. I had no intention of purchasing a vehicle this year as it was. I was asked to put in for this grant several years ago, I believe it was 3 years ago. And every year, again, everybody kept saying, you need to find money to pay for these cars. So I put in for the grant, and we kept putting in for it, and finally they approved the grant. It wasn't my choice when they approved the grant, but if we turn the grant down, we still need to buy cars at some point. So the car this is replacing is a 2012 Chevy Tahoe with 127,000 miles on it, which will be close to that 150 by the end of next year. That our insurance company tells us we can't drive those for patrol cars anymore. I've got 2 other cars out in the fleet now that have over 125,000 miles on it too.
So I guess not holding you to this, but like an estimate, how many vehicles do we have right now in operation?
7.
And then how many of those, like I say, within 2 years would be in that category of?
The patrol vehicles put about 30,000 miles a year on them. Okay. A supervisor vehicle goes about 20,000 because they don't spend quite as much time out on the road.
Okay. But in terms of when they're in the territory where you're saying that they can't be, I guess, used anymore.
Yeah, the insurance company has told us they prefer it 120, but they said absolutely mandatory, no vehicles on patrol with over 150,000 miles.
So then how many of those 7 will be in that territory, let's say in the next?
Well, it depends on how they're used, whether we have to continue to use them as a primary car or they go to a secondary car. We have a 2006 and a 2007 in the fleet. They're secondary cars that aren't used every day, so they've lasted that long. If they stay in the primary role, they need to be replaced 30,000, 5 years at a minimum, so.
If there are no more questions, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Barnes,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Decker,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
and Mayor Domingo.
No. Request approval resolution, city manager's report. How about that?
Okay, Mayor and Council, first of all, I want to thank Danielle Nelson for serving as our city clerk today, as Mrs. Domingo prepares for the election tomorrow, and again, everyone's reminded to be sure to vote tomorrow. And I want to welcome Amy, our new EDC, President, CEO. Looking forward to working with you. We have a number of activities coming up for you to participate in. One is this Thursday, November 10th at 7 p.m. City Council is in fact hosting and inviting all of your boards and commissions, including the DDA and the ABA and EDC, to come to a building rehabilitation and downtown vibrancy event in Albion. The representative from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, Emily Petz, who you've seen before, will be here talking about some of the various programs that they offer, as well as we will again be introducing Amy to the community, and there will be an exciting preview of a new local project that will be unveiled at that session. So it'll be 7 o'clock here in the council chambers. Also, in case you noticed on your way up here, there's a lot of new art on the walls in City Hall, and that's because of a partnership we have with Albion College. And the artist, let's see her name on here. Thank you, Amanda Kendricks. We'll have her official unveiling of the exhibit at City Hall, and that will be on November 16th from 5 to 7 p.m. So the reception will be in City Hall, and she'll be here to talk about her art, and we hope to have guest painting artists here in City Hall. So we're really excited about those two in particular. Also, I think I gave to all of you, I think most of you responded in regards to your availability for the budget hearing, the study sessions, the first one being Monday. And what else is going on? We are very appreciative to the Albion Community Foundation. They funded, I think it was 7 different programs from the city, some of them for Highland Park, some of them for recreation. So we're really thrilled to get those types of programs supported through the Albion Community Foundation. The comprehensive master plan that we've been talking about, the Planning Commission will have their public hearing on November 28th at 28th at 7 p.m. and then council will have their recommendation from the Planning Commission on the 30th at a special meeting. So that's at 6:30 on Wednesday the 30th. Let's see, did I cover everything? Councilmember Lynn Reed mentioned her celebrity soup supper. That's November 11th from 5 to 8 p.m. That's in support of Highland Park. And I want to remind everyone that City Hall is closed on Friday, November 11th for Veterans Day and our appreciation to all of our veterans. And then again on the Thursday and Friday, November 24th and 25th for Thanksgiving. And I think that's all that I have. Also, I wanted to mention to you that Michigan Municipal League is offering training for newly elected officials, with the first one coming up, I believe it's in November, it's in your packet, on November 16th in Lansing. That price is $90. So I wanted to make that information available to you, as well as the all the candidates, should they be successful in their campaigns. And we're really, really excited about the open gym schedule and the early release days of Bridging the Gap that Recreation is offering at the Albion Community Center that's housed in the Marshall Opportunity School on Watson Street, so that we have our young people having some opportunities, as well as adults. Adults can also participate in those open gym hours on those designated days. And I had a really fun weekend with our junior optimists. Took them to a conference in Clarkston, and if you saw the ride back where they were singing very loudly, it was a very special day in my life that my ears are still ringing, but we're really proud of them, and they'll be hosting a group of young people from around the state here in Albion in March, so we're looking forward to that.
You done?
Yes, I am.
I have two questions on your report. As far as the comprehensive master plan, it's meeting on the 30th. So I would be able to bring that on a new agenda item on the 21st, right? Because there's some, locations that I want to be included in that discussion when it comes back to us. I want the council to be ahead of the game. Cool.
Cool. Or at any point, I'll be meeting with Rosalind Jones this week, in fact, so if you have something specific, you can get those to me through her anytime.
Okay, and secondly, the bike-friendly initiatives, where is that going to be located?
That meeting, that will be here in City Hall.
Okay, thank you.
That it? Okay. Future agenda items? Yes.
Comprehensive plan.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. All the members are here. Citizens' comments, persons addressing the city council, limit their comments to no more than 5 minutes. Proper decorum is required. Are there any city any compliment? Yeah, boy. Citizen comments this evening from the audience. If there is, please step forward with your name and your address and your comment. If there isn't, I'm going to ask for an adjournment.
So moved.
Support.
I'll be quick, Councilman French. My name is Sonia Brown. I live at 713 Orchard Drive. I am a candidate for City Council. Precinct 3, I will be on your Precinct 3 ballots tomorrow. Polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. If anyone needs a ride, the NAACP are offering free rides. You may call 629-3510. I confirmed that with Mr. Dunklin over the weekend. So just asking everyone to get out tomorrow and vote. It is your right, it is your duty to get out and let your voice be heard. Really looking forward to the great things happening in Albion. I think it's time that we all come together, create one vision, and move the city forward. So I'm asking you all to get out tomorrow and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments this night?
Of course, I've got to get up and talk. I've gotten up and talked all last 2 years since I've become county commissioner. My name's Mike Behrman. I live at 11016 29 Mile Road, and I am your county commissioner. I will be for another month. But I'm not going to leave you at that point in time because I will still be on a lot of different boards, like the Solid Waste Board and like the Senior Forks Strategic Envision and Marshall Strategic Vision for their Senior Forks, their Senior Center. We're doing an awful lot of things throughout the county, trying to work together with all the different communities, all the way from the bicycle trails, the solid waste, the you name it, we're part of it. The tearing down the houses with the land bank, where these are all parts of our programs. So always remember that the county is here, always working with you. I know that I haven't gotten too far with the programs that we were trying to put in place. We started talking with City Manager Cheryl Mitchell that we wanted to do a lot more of collaborating with the city to try to hold the cost down in the city too. We've got to work together to hold the cost down for everybody, and that's where it's got to be. So I want everybody to get out and vote. I want you to vote for people that can move the city forward and that are all prepared, and we can have a little quicker meetings than this in the future. Thank you.
Just a minute.
Okay, make sure they know.
Are there any further citizens' comments? Please step forward with your name and address, please.
Hello, my name's Cody Smith. As for my address, I'd have to say room 262 at Wesley Hall in Albion College. Now, there's a lot of us here today who are from Albion, and we have a lot of questions for you each individually. And I would ask that some of you stay behind to just answer some of our questions, that way we're not holding up everyone here in the meeting who has somewhere to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Any further questions from the audience? If not, Maurice, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted you all to know, I didn't shave. I thought French wouldn't shave.
I forgot.
No
I'm sorry.
shave November, men's health, and prostate cancer. So please, I'm not a bum. Thank you.
Well, not shaving's not healthy. I would like to just make a comment before I close tonight, is that I highly recommend that the new electees go to the MML. That is one thing that you need to do at least one time so you understand what the MML is for. I wish you all the luck there is, and we'll find out who you are on the
Tomorrow night.
9th. And we wish you all well. So everybody take the time to go out and vote and do what you have to do, and have a good evening and a safe. And I've already got a motion and a support. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same, and thank you and good evening. Can somebody fix the damn lights in here? You can have mine, I don't care.